Once a year, the top figures in Bavarian politics gather at the grave of Franz Josef Strauß, the man celebrated as something between the patron saint and godfather of modern Bavaria. Germany's Interior Minister Horst Seehofer is here too. In Berlin, he's the troublemaker in Angela Merkel's government. In Bavaria, the CSU party leader is already trying to distance himself from an expected election defeat. Calls for his head are getting louder. There's an expectation that you should take responsibility this Sunday if this goes badly for your CSU party. Will you do that?
It's nice of people to worry about these things, but I didn't see a single election poster with my face on it as I was driving up here.
Instead, State Premier Merkel Söder is on the posters and in the spotlight. He used to have a picture of Franz Josef Strauß in his bedroom and still likes to quote him.
There should be no space for democratic parties further right than us. The far-right AfD campaigned that Strauß would have voted for them. He'd have fought them.
The Strauß family has criticized CSU leaders for failing to act against the rise of the far right. They had even started adopting right-wing rhetoric themselves. It was Söder, hoping to take over as the CSU's new strongman, who eventually put a stop to that. Here in Lower Bavaria, many voters have long fled from the CSU and gone further to the right. Although Bavarian support for the far-right AfD is patchy, the region of Deggendorf saw it get around 30% in last year's general elections, making this prime political battleground.
The room is packed as the AfD's parliamentary group leader arrives here near Deggendorf, the AfD's strongest constituency in Bavaria so far. She's come all the way from Berlin because she knows that these regional elections are about much more than Bavaria alone.
Alice Weidel is here supporting the AfD's Bavarian shooting star. Katrin Ebner-Steiner is young, traditional and unapologetic about her key ambition.
This will be the final nail in the coffin of the woman who wants to abolish Germany, Angela Merkel.
Auch in Bayern. Messern.
In Bavaria, too, spoilt illegal immigrants knife and rape people in small villages and towns.
During her speech, she cites figures suggesting migrants are 10 times as likely to commit violent crimes.
You cited crime statistics. We are not aware of those. Where exactly did you get them from?
That's the official police statistic, processed by our chief superintendent, who is also a member of parliament.
The statistics she quotes do not come to this conclusion. Fear is a driving force for many here tonight.
I can no longer let my kids out on the street on their own with what I see on TV or hear on the radio. Just can't do it anymore.
The main issue is security. I have children and we're really afraid for our children.
That's the mood Merkel Söder is up against as he faces the Deggendorf crowd. Here, he acknowledges he can't stop a broad populist movement reaching Bavaria.
There's a wind of change blowing across Europe. It challenges established institutions. And that spirit of change doesn't stop at Germany's borders, not at Bavaria's borders. It's sweeping across our country.
The figure of Bavaria looms large over the Oktoberfest. Generally a politics-free zone, but the state election is being fought in the name of defending what it celebrates best and Bavarians hold most dear.
Homeland, parties, good quality of life.
Heimat. Heimat.
Homeland, being happy, Oktoberfest.
In Bavaria, like the rest of Germany, emotions run high as soon as it comes to migration.
The sheer ferocity of the migration debate has left many fearing for Bavaria's global brand.
Freising Brewery has been in the family of Lord Ignaz zu Töring-Jettenbach for more than 500 years. German purity law makes sure the beer recipes are as old as the traditions behind them. The great concern here is that nationalism could threaten business.
If people outside Germany buy a Bavarian beer, I want them to think of a beautiful country, I want them to think of the friendliness of our people, I want them to think of our culture, of our traditions, and I don't want them to think of violence and hate and racism and things like this. So we have to watch very carefully what's going on, and this cannot continue.
Visitors from around the world have been welcome at the Abbey of Ottobeuren for more than 1,000 years. Angela Merkel is expected here today. There are demonstrations against, but also for her, a fixture since what became known as the migration crisis in 2015. It's her only joint appearance with the Conservative top candidate Markus Söder. Merkel calls for confidence in being German as an antidote for fear of others.
Those who are no longer aware of their own foundations, of course, don't know how to integrate others. And in this debate about Islam, I sometimes get the sense that some may have become jealous, that others are living their religion while we forget ours.
Bavarian elections used to be coronation-style transfers of power, but Markus Söder knows he faces a fight in Sunday's elections.
Currently, we are seeing something totally different here in Germany. People should be happy and content, because things have never been better in Germany.
Despite that strong economy, the public are unhappy and turning away from the CSU in both directions. Current polls predict the Greens could become Bavaria's second strongest political force and could well join the CSU-led government. Their top candidates see themselves as living proof that a left-wing alternative for Germany is possible.
Bavaria has a great motto, to live and let live. And I think that sums it up perfectly. Of course we're open to the world, we're pro-Europe and we want to stay that way. And I believe the citizens of Bavaria are done with politicians and others spreading hate and fear.
Here in Munich, like the whole of Europe, politicians are struggling to understand the new public discontent. Many fear a new right-wing mainstream.
Munich is open to the world with a Bavarian soul. That's how we should behave. We don't need those Nazis.
What we need to do is balance out the gap between rich and poor, here in Germany and the rest of the world. But I don't think the 14th of October will get us any closer to that.
For the first time in German post-war history, this Bavarian election campaign smacks of pro-change sentiment. At the very least, that's expected to blow away Angela Merkel's Interior Minister Horst Seehofer, but it could also deal another blow to her own grip on power.